I hope everybody had a great 4th of July. I know I did. And what's more American than a red, white? We need a blue Corvette. If we had a blue Corvette, it would be complete. I think we should work on that.
We're at the movies, huh?
Yep, we're at the movies. We're back in the garage for another quick update to show you what's been going on with the 63. So we ended up taking the 65 and the 63 to the Father's Day car cruise. It was postponed because of Pennsylvania weather. So they had it. It was a perfect day for it. I was coming back from a little vacation, so my dad brought both cars and he had someone chauffeur him back and forth. Luckily, it was right down the road. And everybody loved the 63. They said it looks fantastic, looks like a brand new car, and that's always good to hear. But there's a few things that need refining. So, for example, we were coming back. We got the car lined, by the way. And it was way out of alignment before. So we aligned the car initially whenever there wasn't a body on it, there wasn't even an engine in the frame. So the front actually wasn't too terrible. The back definitely needed a little bit of love. Whenever you drive the car down the road, it would just do its own thing. It was all over the place. So the guys at the shop did a really good job getting it aligned. They couldn't get that camber over, but it's just right on the edge, or the toe, sorry. The toe, they couldn't get that one lined up 100%, but I mean, it's still close enough within the spec and still perfect. I mean, the thing drives really, really good. So we got that taken care of. On the way back, driving home, my dad was beating on it a little bit, more than it's been, not beating on it, but he's revving it up a little higher than it has been. And the water pump shaft was bent, so it threw the belt off, and then the lower hose shot off from pressure building up inside, and it dumped coolant out in the driveway, and that wasn't good. So I ended up finding, luckily the pulley isn't bent because they don't make a 63 one. But the water pump was, so I went and got one from Advance Auto Parts, which was a bummer to get rid of the expensive numbers correct water pump and throw on just some generic pump. But luckily, it was leaking on the lower hose before, but just swapped that pump in, and it has a machined end on there versus the other one, which was just the as cast, which was more prone to leaking. This one was machined, it has a barb on it, so it's much better to seal, and the thing was like 30 some bucks. So that's replaced, but now it still throws the belt. It's an alignment, but it still chucks it. This is a correct type belt, but it might not be stiff enough, or it might be too narrow. I'm not sure what the deal is with the belt, but it's not happy where it's at, so we're going to get a new one. That involves taking off the power steering belt. So that was taken care of. We had another issue before where the brake pedal would stick to the floor, and that was because the booster was getting sticky. So the grease got really sticky inside of the booster for some reason. So that was rebuilt at one point. Go around the back. And then on the way, my dad was driving the car, and the back brakes, it threw a belt, and then the back brakes were getting hot. And that was because the emergency brake was messed up. So we took that apart, rebuilt the one wheel cylinder, and then readjusted the emergency brake cables. So that was good. We had another issue. I thought the car was kind of hard to drive the way we had the throttle set up, because you would push the throttle down and it felt like you had a lot of pressure to overcome before it finally went anywhere. So, and the clutch was brand new, so the clutch was a little heavy at that point too. You would be letting it out and then it would feel like it would just want to jerk out, and the gas pedal was the opposite, so it was a little finicky. And what the problem was is that we thought you would take off this return spring and the throttle would make itself advance. It looked like the car wanted to give itself throttle. And I took everything apart, re-lubed it up, made sure everything was nice and loose, and we had a different spring on there that was shorter, so that was changing our spring rate. But the problem was the gas pedal was too stiff. Where it mounts to the floor down there was too stiff, so the gas pedal wanted to stay at this angle, so I just had to bend it back a lot. And after I did that a few times, it relaxed, so it's just barely resting on like that little spoon that it sits on, and it works a lot better. Put the right spring on it and the thing drives a heck of a lot better. So we're just finding little problems here and there and fixing them as we go. But the thing definitely drives a heck of a lot straighter, and it's a good driving car. It's a good cruising car, and it's still really, really peppy for having highway gears in it and the 300 horsepower engine. It definitely feels a lot different than riding in my dad's car because it doesn't have side pipes and it's a lot quieter, but it still is a really, really fun car. As I mentioned before, I have a full set of windshield trim for this some of it's getting polished. The upper and lower pieces are getting polished and getting the dents taken out of because somebody beat the heck out of them. And I finally got the pinch welts in so I can finish up the insides of the doors in the back and finish up the console. And then we're going to put front bumpers on. But we're getting a new driveway done soon, so both of these cars are going to go back into storage. That way they don't get trapped while the concrete's curing. Eventually, we're going to put my knockoffs on this car and then put his steel wheels on once we get new tires and put the 65 hubcaps back on this. And another thing, right now the ride height's a little messed up on this because we had it jacked up, and whenever you jack them up, the rear tires kind of toe in. But these are a bigger tire diameter wise, so they fill up his wheel wells a little better, but he has too big of springs in it. The front end sits a lot higher, and looks more just like the front end sits a little higher than the back. But either way, the whole car needs to come down a little bit in terms of ride height, especially when you put those wheels on. So we're gonna have to put new springs in that car. Probably not this year. I don't know when. Maybe this year. But we have to do that in the future. But this thing is pretty much done right now. We haven't been able to drive it very far because it keeps chucking the fan belt. So we haven't really tested to see how the car does long distance. So hopefully my dad's been getting a belt now, so we'll get that swapped over and start to bring the car into more distance driving and see how it does. And now that we have an emergency brake, it's a little safer. So hopefully we'll be able to road test it more and get it out to Corvettes at Carlisle this year. That's the end goal. That's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Check out the rest of the videos in my channel to see some work on this car, and maybe another one in the future. So be sure to stick around and check that out. I still got a little bit of work to do, so I'll catch you guys later. I've always been dreaming about owning this type of car, but I never thought it would happen because they are so incredibly expensive. I mean, not that a split window isn't incredibly expensive, but this other car is also incredibly expensive. But right here, I have a very small piece of that said car that is in storage in another area that could very well become a blue Corvette. So this may not look like anything important, it's just a shroud. But to somebody that knows their vets, you probably still might not know what this is until you put it over here. You have to go back and look in the history books. But I have a car in storage that I'll be doing an unveiling video on very soon, so be sure to stick around for that.